Now, let us talk about the topic of gametogenesis. So, here we begin with the topic of gametogenesis. Now, what do you mean by gametogenesis? Okay, so this is the topic of human reproduction. After completing the male and female reproductive system, the internal and the external genitalia, we will start with the production of gametes. Okay, now over here, gametogenesis, genesis means formation of gamete. So here we can say that formation of gametes is known as gametogenesis. Alright. Rule is gametes are always haploid. The ploidy level is always haploid. So you can say that the formation of haploid gametes in male, that is sperms, and in female, that is ova. That is what you call it as gametogenesis. And which divisions are involved over here? So two different kinds of division is involved, that is mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis we also call it as equational cell division, and meiosis we also call it as what you can say is reductional division. Particularly when we talk about meiosis over here, it can also be called as maturation division. Alright, so here it can also be called it as reductional, is of course meiosis is a reductional cell division, as well as far as gametes are concerned, it is also called as maturation phase or maturation division. Whereas here it is known as equational cell division. Let us have a brief idea about the gametogenesis. Now, suppose that gametogenesis is taking place in male. Right? So, in male, what is formed? In male, sperms are formed. Okay. So, we will call that in male, sperms are formed. So, we call it as spermatogenesis. Right? In male, it is known as spermatogenesis. Of course, it is all under the hormonal control. So, spermatogenesis. Now, spermatogenesis, formation of sperms. It is split into two phases further. The first phase is known as formation of spermatids. Remember this. Spermatids. Now, spermatid is not a sperm. It is yet a single cell with no tail, no head piece, no middle piece. So, it is not morphologically differentiated one. It is simple a cell which is haploid. Right. Then next comes the process of spermiogenesis. Spermiogenesis. Now, what is the spermiogenesis? The spermiogenesis is what we can say the morphological differentiation of spermatids into sperms. So, what I have told you, spermatid would be something like this. Right? It is a haploid cell. So, what is spermiogenesis? Spermiogenesis is the morphological differentiation of spermatids into sperms. So, I'll just give you a representation over here. Let's say this is a spermatid, right, which is formed in the first phase. And when this is converted into this kind of structure, right, this kind of structure, we call it as sperms. So this is what you call it as the morphological changes that is taking place, right? Alright, so in males sperms are formed in this way, and this process is what you call it as spermatogenesis. Now, after the formation of sperms, what takes place? It is known as spermiation. Now what is spermiation? Spermiation is release of sperms. Release of sperms is known as spermiation. So when the sperms are released from the testes, this process is known as spermiation. Now next we will talk in female. So what happens in a female? Let us talk over here. In female, what is formed? Ova is formed or ovum is formed. And the formation of ovum in sperms is called as, the process is called as oogenesis. It is called as oogenesis. And it is, it is not having this kind of phase, because ova is simple, round, big structure which is comparatively larger in size as compared to the sperms, and it is residing in the ovary, and when released, that process is known as ovulation. So oogenesis is what? Formation of ovum. Formation of ovum. And release of ovum, okay, release of ova is called as ovulation. Release of sperm is called spermiation, whereas the release of ova is called ovulation. Now, when does this start? Let me tell you that spermatogenesis starts at puberty. Okay? Whereas in female, oogenesis starts right when that particular female is herself at the embryonic stage. Matlab, what I am telling is, like suppose taking an example of any one female, let's say me. Okay, so when does ovulation started in me? When I was inside my mother's uterus and I was at the embryonic stage. So at that time only, what you can say, the numbers of ova were decided that this many numbers of ova will be produced by this particular female. So in female, the process of oogenesis starts at, you can say, embryonic stage, right in the uterus of the mother. So it starts right from that phase. So this is about the brief introduction of what is meant by, what you can say, gametogenesis, which divisions are involved. If it is in male, what is it called? If it is in female, what is it called? So this is about the, we can say, the process of gametogenesis. So friends, now we are going to talk about the topic of spermatogenesis, and this is extremely important at the board level as well as at the NEET level. So we will be doing this process, and as you can see that I have drawn a chart on the board. Now over here we will divide the whole process into two phases. Now we know that what is spermatogenesis. So we know that formation of mature haploid motile sperm, that is male gamete, is known as spermatogenesis. We also know that spermatogenesis, as I told you previously, it is differentiated into two phases, right? So it is differentiated into two phases. The first is known as formation of spermatids. So the first phase is formation of spermatids. So I'll write that, spermatid formation. And the second phase is known as spermiogenesis. What is spermiogenesis? So we know that it is sperm formation, which is with the head and tail, right? So we will see this phase in detail. Now, from here to here, okay, So from spermatogonium to spermatid, I will say this much. Okay, this much process is called as what you can say, the first, that is what you call it as formation of spermatids. And once this spermatid is formed, we know that the morphological differentiation will take place and this round cell will have head, middle piece and tail. So this whole process is known as spermatogenesis. Now let us begin with the topic. The first phase, here I have mentioned number of chromosome. So it remains from 46 to 46 only. So the first phase is over here and that phase is known as the multiplication phase. So I am talking about the first phase of formation of spermatids, and that first phase here I'll write it as, this phase is known as the multiplication phase. Now what happens in multiplication phase? The spermatogonia divides mitotically and will form primary spermatocytes. So over here, spermatogonium. Spermatogonium is a cell which has derived from the seminiferous tubules. Okay, तो seminiferous tubules में से जो निकला हुआ सेल है उसे हम कहते हैं स्पर्मेटोगोनियम. और स्पर्मेटोगोनियम कैसे डिवाइड करेगा? वो डिवाइड करेगा माइटोसिस से and it will form primary spermatocytes. So when spermatogonium divides mitotically, okay, so here if it is 2n, and what is that 2n? 2n is 46, it will form primary spermatocytes. So I am writing over here, it is primary spermatocytes. Now we also know that from here to here, mitosis. So which cell division is that? Mitosis, equational, right? So number of chromosome remains as it is. Okay, so as the number of chromosome remains as it is, you can say this is also 2n. So the first, it keeps on dividing and dividing and dividing, and it will form so many primary spermatocytes. Remember the what can say, the ploidy level, it is diploid. So this is basically multiplication phase. Means what? The number of gametes would be more because of this, what you can say, because of this kind of phase. Now second phase over here, I'll just draw it in a small, and this phase is known as a growth phase. What is it called? Growth phase. Right? In growth phase, simply we will write that this primary spermatocyte will grow in size, right? So I'll write over here primary spermatocyte. We know that it is diploid, right? It will grow in size, right? It will have what we can say more cytoplasm, right? Condensed or concentrated DNA, RNA and proteins, right? So this is what you call it as growth phase, and it is like very short period of time. So primary spermatocyte is still a primary spermatocyte only. So this is also the primary spermatocyte only. Now, so this is the second phase, what you call it as growth phase. Now in the formation of spermatids, we will be going with the third phase, and this is the third phase. Okay. Now what is this third phase? This third phase is known as maturation phase. It is called as maturation phase. Now here I have told you that this is also primary spermatocyte only. It will undergo meiosis 1. So if this is 2n, so as we know that the number of chromosome is 46 right now, it will undergo meiosis 1, which is reductional cell division, and here it will get reduced and it will become half, that is it will become 23. So I'll write over here that in maturation phase, you can say primary spermatocyte, that is this, the grown up one, will undergo meiosis 1 and it will form secondary spermatocyte. Now, suppose if I am talking about primary spermatocyte, we know it is diploid. Diploid means what? The number of chromosome is 46. And it is forming secondary spermatocyte by meiosis 1. So it is from here, it starts becoming haploid. And you know that it is known as maturation phase. Why we call it as maturation phase? Because this results into the formation of haploid gamete, which is the main identity of a gamete. Alright. Then onwards, this secondary spermatocyte will undergo meiosis 2 and it will form the last, that is known as spermatid, which is also going to be haploid. Right? So these three phases are included in what? They are included in formation of spermatids. Right? So this much, that is first phase is this multiplication phase. I'll just put out one more time over here. First phase is this. What is this? Multiplication phase. Second phase is known as the growth phase. And the third phase is known as the maturation phase. Right? So this is 1, 2 and 3. These all are included in this. That is the formation of spermatids. Right? So this is merely what is happening. The cell is dividing first by mitosis. Then it is growing in size. That is itself a primary spermatocyte. Then primary spermatocyte is undergoing meiosis 1. So it is becoming half. So from the number of, till here it is on 2n. So 46. Here it is going meiosis 1. So 23. Again meiosis 2. It will remain as it is. Right? Because this is again an equational division and the spermatid is formed. Now once this spermatid is formed, here it begins the next phase, that is what you call it as, we'll write it over here, the second phase, and that is what you call it as spermatogenesis. So this phase is the spermatogenesis. Now what happens in spermatogenesis? I have already told you previously. In spermatogenesis, the spermatid, that is this, right? Let's say this is spermatid, is undergoing morphological changes into, you can say that it is undergoing morphological changes. So I'll write over here, it is undergoing morphological changes. And it forms head, middle piece and tail. Right? Head, middle piece and tail. So I'll draw over here. This is head. This is the middle piece. And then this is a tail. Right? So it is forming head, middle piece and tail. So this is how you can say sperm, or it can also be called as spermatozoa. So one single cell is forming a whole structure. It is changing its shape and size and everything, and it is getting converted into a mature sperm. So this process is known as spermiogenesis. Now once the sperm is formed, we know that the sperms are released on the sexual excitation or during coitus. We know that the sperms are released, and when the sperms are released, that process is known as spermiation. So just put a point over here. After all this process, means after this process, what occurs? Spermiation. What is spermiation? Spermiation is release of sperms from testes, mature sperms, and that is what you call it as spermiation. So this is in short about the whole process. We call it as spermatogenesis. Now let's have a quick revision in a short way. Let's say it starts at puberty. First the spermatogonium is formed. Spermatogonium undergoes mitosis, which is called as multiplication, and it forms primary spermatocyte. Now this primary spermatocytes are also diploid, right? So diploid to diploid. Then it will grow for a certain period of time. This is also primary spermatocytes only, because it has just grown in size. It will undergo meiosis 1, and then secondary spermatocytes are formed, which is haploid, so the number of chromosomes will reduce from here, this point, okay, which will further form spermatids, which is a circular shaped cell, and that undergoes morphological changes by spermatogenesis, and finally the spermatozoas are formed. So this is all about the process of spermatogenesis, that is formation of sperms.